He found an Apache child dying of hunger. 4 days later, 3 women knocked on his door. The forest was a place of calm for him, a place where the world seemed slower, and he could think clearly. He liked listening to the birds singing, the soft rustle of leaves, and the gentle sound of a small stream that ran through the woods. On this particular morning, the sky was painted with soft shades of orange and pink, the kind that made the day feel peaceful and full of promise. He had his old leather satchel slung across his shoulder, filled with notebooks, a water bottle, and a small snack. John walked along the familiar path, enjoying the crisp air, but something unusual caught his attention, a faint, almost imperceptible sound. At first he thought it was just the wind, or perhaps an animal moving through the underbrush. But as he paused and listened more carefully, he realized it was not the wind. It was a soft, sorrowful sound, almost like someone crying. His heart tightened immediately. The sound was faint, but it carried a weight that made him stop in his tracks. The forest, which usually felt calm and safe, suddenly seemed to hold a quiet tension. John's curiosity and concern pushed him forward. He followed the sound, stepping carefully over roots and stones, moving deeper into a part of the forest he did not visit often. As he moved closer, the crying became clearer. He slowed his steps, trying not to startle whoever or whatever was making the sound. And then between 2 large oak trees he saw him, a small child sitting on the ground, shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. The boy's clothes were tattered and dirty, his hair matted, and his skin had a pale, almost fragile look. His tiny hands clutched his stomach, and he looked up at John with wide, frightened eyes. John's heart immediately ached. The child looked no older than 7, and yet there was a look of exhaustion and despair that made John realize this was no ordinary situation. "Hey there," John said softly, trying to keep his voice gentle and calm. "It's okay. You're safe now." The boy flinched slightly, his eyes darting around the forest as if looking for someone else. But there was no one. John took another cautious step closer and knelt down to make himself appear less threatening. "I'm not going to hurt you. Can you tell me your name?" The child hesitated. Then in a voice barely above a whisper he said, Miko." John nodded. "Miko, okay, Miko. Let's get you somewhere warm, all right." Miko's lips quivered, and he seemed uncertain, but he allowed John to gently lift him into his arms. John noticed how light the boy felt, and it hit him just how little food he must have had over the past days. His stomach tightened at the thought. Carrying Miko carefully, John headed back to his small home on the edge of the forest. It was a modest place, with warm wooden floors and a cozy kitchen. But John had always believed that home is not about luxury. It's about safety and comfort, and he hoped it would be enough for Miko. Once inside, John placed Miko gently on a soft blanket he had laid on the living room floor. He went to the kitchen, filled a small bowl with warm water and brought it back to the boy. "Here, Miko, drink slowly," John said. The boy took tiny sips, and John could see the relief in his eyes. It was a small gesture, but it was the first sign that Miko was starting to trust him. John then rummaged through his pantry for anything soft and easy to digest. He found some rice, a little milk, and a few pieces of bread. He prepared a small portion, warming it gently before bringing it back to Miko. The boy stared at the food, his hands trembling slightly. Hunger was clearly etched into every movement he made. John encouraged him gently. "It's okay, Miko. You can eat. Take your time." Slowly, carefully, Miko picked up a piece of bread and took a tiny bite, then another, and then another. John watched quietly, a mixture of relief and sadness washing over him. Relief because the boy was finally eating something. Sadness because it reminded him how much the child had been through. That night, John stayed awake in the living room, keeping an eye on Miko as he slept fitfully on the blanket. Every so often, the boy stirred or muttered softly in his sleep. John wanted to reassure him, to make sure he felt safe. He thought about what could have brought Miko to the forest alone, why he had been abandoned or lost, and whether anyone was looking for him. The questions crowded his mind, but he focused on what he could do in that moment: make Miko safe, fed, and warm. As dawn approached, John made tea for himself and a small warm drink for Miko. The boy was slowly waking up, rubbing his eyes, looking around as if trying to understand where he was. "Good morning, Miko," John said with a soft smile. "You slept well." Miko nodded slowly, though his eyes were still wary. John gave him a gentle smile. "We're going to take things one step at a time, all right. Today, we'll have some breakfast, and then we'll figure out what comes next." Throughout the morning, John and Miko began to establish a small routine. John washed the boy's face gently, combed his hair, and helped him into clean clothes that John had kept for guests or emergencies. Miko was hesitant at first, but gradually allowed John's careful guidance. When the boy looked into the mirror, he barely recognized himself. His cheeks were no longer so hollow, his eyes seemed brighter. John felt a quiet hope stirring in his heart. He might be able to help this child recover, at least physically. But John knew this was only the beginning. The child's body was weak, yes, but his heart and mind had endured trauma. The boy had survived alone, frightened and hungry for days. John understood that his task was more than feeding and clothing Miko. It was about earning his trust, helping him feel safe, and perhaps, in time, uncovering the story of how Miko ended up in the forest alone. As the day continued, John tried talking to Miko gently, using simple words and questions, allowing the boy to answer in his own way. Sometimes Miko spoke in broken phrases, sometimes only in gestures, but slowly they began to communicate. John discovered that the child had once lived in a small Apache community not far from the town, but had gotten separated during a sudden storm. The child's parents had been looking for him, but the boy had wandered into the forest, lost and alone. Hearing this, John's resolve strengthened. He could not let Miko suffer any longer. He would do everything he could to help him, to keep him safe until his family could be found. Evening came, and the forest outside darkened. John lit a small lamp in the living room, casting a warm glow over the space. Miko sat quietly, holding a small blanket, looking around with wide, cautious eyes. John sat nearby, not pushing the child to talk, simply offering a presence of safety. He thought about how fragile life could be, how a small act of compassion could change the course of someone's life. Tonight, he would stay awake again, watching over Miko, ready to respond to any need, however small. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky outside, John felt a quiet sense of purpose settle over him. He had found this child at a moment of despair, and now he held the responsibility of hope in his hands. It was a heavy responsibility, but also a gift, a chance to make a difference in a life that had already known too much suffering. For the first time in days, Miko closed his eyes peacefully, and John allowed himself to hope that tomorrow would bring a little more light into both of their lives. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the quiet town, casting soft golden light across John's small home. Miko woke up early, rubbing his eyes and sitting quietly on the blanket he had slept on. John had already prepared a simple breakfast, a small bowl of porridge and some bread. He watched the boy cautiously approach the table, still fragile but beginning to show signs of strength. Miko's small hands trembled slightly as he reached for the food, but he ate slowly, savoring each bite. John felt relief mixed with quiet sadness. The boy was eating now, but he had clearly been starved for days. The sight stayed in John's mind like a shadow he could not shake. After breakfast, John helped Miko wash his face and hands. The water felt warm and comforting, and the boy's face slowly regained color. John noticed that Miko's eyes, though brighter than the day before, still carried a hint of fear, a memory of the days he had spent alone in the forest. John realized that healing would take more than just food and water. It would take patience, understanding, and trust. So he spoke softly to the boy, telling him simple stories about his own childhood, the town, and the forest they lived near. Miko listened quietly, sometimes asking small questions, sometimes simply staring at John as if weighing every word. John knew that children who had experienced hardship needed more than words. They needed routine, consistency, and reassurance. So he began establishing small habits to help Miko feel safe. Each morning, they would have breakfast together, followed by a walk around the backyard where the boy could stretch his legs and explore under John's careful supervision. John pointed out the small things, the way sunlight fell on the trees, the chirping birds, and the gentle sway of the grass in the breeze. Slowly, Miko began to respond, reaching out to touch the leaves, giggling softly when a butterfly landed nearby. John's heart lifted. He could see glimpses of the boy's spirit returning, and he knew that these small joys were important for healing. During these days, John also tried to learn more about Miko's past. Through gestures, broken words, and occasional drawings, the boy conveyed pieces of his story. He had lived in a small Apache community not far from the town, a place filled with the warmth of family and culture. But one day, a sudden storm had separated him from his family while he was out gathering firewood. Lost and afraid, Miko wandered into the forest, unable to find his way back. He survived by hiding, staying still for long hours and scavenging what little he could. John listened carefully, never rushing him, knowing that each memory could be painful. Yet he realized that sharing even small parts of his story helped the boy release some of the fear he had carried alone. John also noticed how the boy reacted to the environment around him. He flinched at sudden noises, and sometimes when the wind blew harshly, he would huddle close to John, seeking comfort. But he also showed resilience. When John encouraged him to try walking to the stream behind the house, Miko did so with determination, taking slow but steady steps. John praised him gently, reinforcing the boy's courage without pushing him beyond his limits. Each day, Miko's strength grew, and with it, his trust in John. On the second day, John took Miko to the local library. He thought a quiet, safe environment filled with books might help the boy feel a sense of normalcy. Miko's eyes widened as he saw the shelves filled with books of every shape and color. He wandered slowly, touching the spines, gazing at the pictures, and even pointing at a few books that caught his attention. John selected a few storybooks and read to him in the small reading corner. The boy listened intently, occasionally smiling at the illustrations. For the first time since John had found him, Miko laughed freely, a sound that filled John's heart with warmth. It was a simple moment, but it marked a step forward in the boy's healing. Back at home, John began teaching Miko small routines to help him feel secure. They made their bed together each morning, tidied the living room, and even watered the small garden outside. These tasks were not only practical, but also symbolic. John wanted Miko to feel that he could take part in a world that was stable and safe. The boy slowly learned to trust the rhythm of daily life, knowing that John would be there to guide and protect him. Food remained an important part of their recovery. John carefully prepared meals that were nutritious but easy to digest. He encouraged Miko to eat slowly, explaining why each food was helpful for his body. The boy's appetite grew gradually, and with it, his energy. John also taught him simple cooking skills, how to stir porridge, break bread into small pieces, and wash fruits. These activities gave Miko a sense of independence, and John noticed that the boy began smiling more often, even offering to help without being asked. Despite these small successes, John knew that Miko's emotional recovery would take longer. Some nights, the boy would wake up crying or calling out softly, haunted by dreams of being alone in the forest. John would hold him, whispering reassurances and staying with him until he fell asleep again. Slowly, these nights became less frequent. Miko began to sleep more soundly, his body finally letting go of the tension and fear he had carried for so long. John also reached out to the local community quietly. He did not want to involve too many people yet, fearing that too much attention might overwhelm Miko. Instead, he connected with a few neighbors who were kind and understanding. They offered small gifts, clothes, toys, and books that Miko could enjoy. The boy's eyes lit up when he received a soft blanket or a picture book, and John felt joy in seeing him experience simple pleasures. It was a reminder that care and kindness, even in small doses, could restore hope. By the fourth day, Miko had grown noticeably stronger. He could walk longer distances without fatigue, eat more substantial meals, and even laugh spontaneously. He began speaking in short sentences, telling John about small details from his life before the forest, playing with other children in his community, listening to stories from elders, and helping with daily chores. These memories brought both smiles and tears. John realized that the boy's spirit, though bruised, was resilient. Each story he shared was a small victory, a reclaiming of a childhood that had been interrupted by fear and hunger. Throughout this time, John reflected on his own life as well. He had always lived quietly, helping others when he could, but this experience with Miko opened a new perspective. He realized that compassion could create connections stronger than fear or hardship. Miko had arrived in his life unexpectedly, and yet caring for him brought a sense of purpose and fulfillment that John had never known. He understood that the boy's recovery was not just physical but emotional, and he committed himself to being a steady presence in Miko's life until the day the boy could be reunited with his family. As evening fell on the fourth day, John and Miko sat by the window, watching the sky change colors. The boy had a small sketchbook in his hands, drawing pictures of the forest, the birds, and the small home that had become his safe place. John watched quietly, amazed at how creative and observant Miko was. The sketches were simple, but they told a story of curiosity, resilience, and hope. John realized that the boy was slowly reclaiming his childhood, one day, one smile, and one drawing at a time. That night, after tucking Miko in and making sure he was comfortable, John sat in his chair, reflecting on the past 4 days. He thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly circumstances could change, and how much a single act of kindness could alter someone's path. He knew the journey ahead was not over. Miko still needed care, patience, and guidance, but he also knew that the boy was no longer alone. For the first time in days, John felt a deep sense of hope. The bond they had begun to build in these few days was strong, and it would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As he turned off the lamp and listened to the gentle breathing of the boy sleeping peacefully, John whispered softly, "We're going to get through this together, Miko. You're safe now. You're not alone anymore." Outside, the forest stood calm and quiet, the night full of stars and possibility. For John and Miko, the days ahead promised hope, healing, and a chance for a new beginning, one step at a time. It was the morning of the 5th day since John had found Miko. The air felt fresher than usual, carrying a soft chill from the nearby forest. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting warm golden patterns on the wooden floor. Miko was already awake, sitting on the blanket with his small sketchbook in hand, drawing pictures of the forest and the birds he had seen over the past few days. His tiny fingers moved carefully across the paper, and John smiled quietly as he watched the boy's focus and creativity. It was moments like this that reminded John how strong Miko truly was, despite the hardships he had faced. The quiet morning was suddenly interrupted by a firm knock on the door. John paused, surprised, as it was unusual for anyone to visit him without warning. He glanced at Miko, who looked up with wide, curious eyes. The boy seemed both excited and anxious, as if sensing that something important was about to happen. John took a deep breath and walked to the door. When he opened it, he was met with the sight of 3 women standing on his porch. They looked anxious yet determined, their eyes scanning his home as if searching for something or someone. "Hello," John said softly, trying not to startle them. "Can I help you?" One of the women stepped forward. She was older than the other 2, with kind, weathered eyes and a calm presence. "Are you John?" she asked. Her voice was gentle but carried a hint of urgency. John nodded. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" The woman took a small step closer, glancing at Miko, who was now standing behind John, peeking curiously from the edge of the doorway. "We are from Miko's community," she said. "We've been searching for him. We finally traced him here. Is he safe?" John felt a rush of relief and a sudden emotional weight. He realized that these women had been looking for Miko for days, maybe even longer, filled with worry and fear. "Yes," he said, his voice steady but soft. "He is safe. I've been caring for him since I found him in the forest 4 days ago." The women exchanged glances, and one of them, the youngest, stepped forward, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she said quietly. "We feared the worst." She knelt slightly, extending her arms toward Miko. The boy hesitated, his tiny body stiffening with caution. But when he saw the warmth and familiarity in the women's faces, he slowly stepped forward, drawn by an invisible connection he could not yet explain. The oldest woman smiled gently, kneeling to be closer to the boy's level. "Miko," she said softly, "we've been looking for you. You're safe now. You're home." Miko blinked, uncertain, but there was something in her voice that spoke of comfort, of protection. Slowly, he reached out his small hand, letting it rest briefly in hers. John felt a lump in his throat as he watched the scene unfold. He realized that this moment was far bigger than anything he could have imagined. A reunion filled with relief, love, and unspoken emotions. The women introduced themselves as distant relatives and caretakers from Miko's Apache community. They explained that the boy had wandered off during a sudden storm, and despite their efforts, they had been unable to locate him for several days. John listened carefully, realizing the depth of their worry and the strength of the bond between them and the boy. It was clear that Miko was part of a loving community, one that had been searching tirelessly for him. The women's presence brought a sense of completion, a missing piece to the puzzle of the boy's recent past. Miko clung to the older woman, his small body trembling slightly. I'm hungry," he whispered. The women smiled warmly, and the middle-aged woman held up a small bag she had brought with her, filled with food. "You must be very hungry, little one," she said gently. "Let's have something to eat, then we can talk." John felt a mixture of relief and pride. Miko had grown stronger over the past few days, but he could see how important this moment was, not just for nourishment, but for reconnecting with the love and support that had been missing in the boy's life. As they all sat in the living room, sharing food and conversation, John began to learn more about Miko's community. The women spoke of their traditions, the importance of family, and the lessons they had hoped to teach Miko. They spoke with pride and care, explaining how each child in the community was cherished and guided with patience and love. John listened attentively, realizing that this was a world he had never known, but one that was rich in culture, warmth, and resilience. Miko, for his part, seemed to respond to their stories in ways that words could not fully capture. His eyes sparkled, and he began to speak more freely, telling small details of his days in the forest, the birds he had seen, the way he had survived by hiding and staying cautious, and even the small joys he had discovered, like finding a patch of berries. The women listened intently, nodding and smiling, showing understanding and empathy. John noticed how quickly Miko's demeanor shifted in their presence. There was a sense of belonging and comfort that had been missing before. Throughout the day, John watched the interactions closely. He felt a sense of humility and quiet pride, knowing that he had played a part in keeping Miko safe until help arrived. But he also recognized that this was a moment of transition. The women's arrival signaled the beginning of a new chapter in Miko's life, one where he could reconnect with his community and begin to rebuild the relationships that had been temporarily broken. John realized that his role, though significant, would gradually change as the boy reestablished these bonds. The women expressed their gratitude repeatedly, both for John's care and for the patience he had shown. They brought small gifts for Miko, a soft blanket, a few books, and a simple toy, which the boy received with delight. John noticed that these gestures, though small, seemed to have a profound impact on Miko's spirit. He laughed freely as he explored the gifts, and John felt a sense of fulfillment in seeing the boy's joy. As evening approached, the women prepared to leave, but not before speaking with John privately. They wanted to ensure that Miko would continue to feel safe and cared for during the transition back to the community. John agreed to stay in contact, promising to provide updates on the boy's well-being and to assist whenever needed. The conversation was filled with mutual respect and understanding. John realized that this partnership was not just about returning Miko to his community, but about creating a support system that would allow the boy to thrive. Before leaving, Miko hugged John tightly, his small arms wrapped around him with surprising strength. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice soft but full of emotion. John held the boy for a long moment, feeling a mixture of sadness and happiness. Sadness because he would miss the boy he had come to care for deeply, and happiness because Miko was returning to a place where he belonged, a place filled with love, culture, and family. As the women led Miko toward their car, John watched quietly from the doorway. He saw the boy glance back at him, giving a small, shy wave. John waved back, his heart full. He knew that this was a farewell of sorts, but also a beginning. Miko's journey was far from over, but he was now surrounded by the love and support that every child deserved. John felt grateful to have been part of this crucial chapter in the boy's life, knowing that his actions had made a difference when it mattered most. That night, John sat in his quiet home, reflecting on the past days. He thought about the unexpected arrival of the women, the emotional reunion, and the trust that Miko had placed in him. It was a reminder of the fragility and resilience of life, the power of compassion, and the importance of human connection. He understood that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, offering food, warmth, and a safe space, could change the course of someone's life entirely. He also felt a sense of hope. Miko's laughter, his growing confidence, and the bond he had formed with his community showed that even after fear and uncertainty, life could offer moments of joy and belonging. John realized that this experience had not only changed Miko's life, but had also transformed his own. He felt more connected to the world around him, more aware of the impact one person could have, and more determined to continue helping others in need. As the stars appeared in the night sky, John sat quietly by the window, thinking of Miko and his community. He knew that the boy was now in safe hands, but he also knew that the memories of these past days, the fear, the struggle, and the triumph, would remain with him forever. And in that quiet reflection, John felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that compassion, courage, and patience had brought them all to this moment. A moment of reunion, understanding, and hope. After the arrival of the three women, John noticed a subtle change in Miko. The boy seemed more alert, more curious, and more alive than he had been in the previous days. Yet, there was also a hint of tension, as if he were struggling to understand this sudden shift in his world. The women had come into his life like a gentle breeze, filling a space that had been empty for far too long. They carried with them the warmth of family, the reassurance of belonging, and the promise of care and protection. For Miko, it was overwhelming, but also comforting. The women invited John inside for tea, and he gladly accepted, wanting to learn more about Miko's past and the community from which he came. They settled in the living room, sitting across from John with a quiet dignity and an air of authority that immediately commanded respect. Miko stayed close to the older woman, occasionally glancing at John with curiosity and gratitude. He seemed to understand that John had been the one who saved him, and there was a silent acknowledgement between them, a bond formed through shared hardship and care. As they sipped their tea, the women began to share Miko's story. They spoke softly, carefully choosing their words, as if aware that the boy was listening and absorbing every detail. They explained that Miko's parents had been farmers, working tirelessly to provide for their children and maintain the traditions of their Apache community. They spoke of the challenges the family had faced, the harsh weather, the long walks to gather resources, and the constant need to protect and nurture their children. John listened intently, realizing that the boy's journey had been shaped by both love and struggle. Miko, sitting quietly beside the women, seemed to be absorbing the story with a mixture of awe and sadness. There were moments when he would glance up at John, seeking reassurance, and he would find it in the calm, encouraging smile on John's face. The boy's eyes occasionally filled with tears, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of understanding, of reconnecting with a family he had missed so deeply. John could see that the process of healing was not just physical but emotional, and he felt a profound sense of responsibility to support Miko in every way he could. The middle-aged woman leaned closer to Miko, her voice gentle and comforting. "Your parents love you very much," she said. "They have been worried and searching for you every day. You are not alone anymore, Miko. You are safe and you are loved." The boy's eyes widened, and he clutched the woman's hand, holding on as if anchoring himself to the reality of her words. John watched silently, understanding that this moment was pivotal. Miko was beginning to reconnect with the love he had been missing, and it was transforming him in ways that no food or comfort alone could achieve. The youngest woman spoke next, her voice filled with emotion. "Miko, we have been telling your parents where we might find you. They will come soon, but we wanted to make sure you were safe first. John has been taking care of you, and we are very grateful." Miko's small hands reached out, touching John's arm in a brief, tender gesture. It was a simple acknowledgement, but it carried the weight of trust, gratitude, and affection. John felt a lump in his throat, realizing that the boy had not only survived the forest and hunger, but had also learned to trust and love again. The women shared more about the daily life of Miko's community. They spoke of the children playing together, learning from the elders, and participating in cultural traditions. They described the importance of storytelling, music, and respect for nature. John listened with fascination, understanding that Miko was part of a world rich with culture, history, and meaning. He realized that the boy's recovery would be greatly aided by reconnecting with this community, where he could learn, grow, and belong. Miko began to speak more freely, answering questions from the women and even asking a few of his own. He described the forest, the small stream near John's home, and the birds he had seen. He talked about the meals John had prepared and the safety he felt in the little house. The women listened attentively, nodding and smiling, reinforcing the idea that Miko's experiences were valid and important. They praised his bravery and resilience, making sure the boy understood that surviving alone for days was an extraordinary accomplishment. As the afternoon progressed, John and the women discussed how best to support Miko during this transition. They agreed that he would stay with John for a few more days, allowing him to adjust slowly while maintaining a connection with his community. They emphasized the importance of patience, understanding, and encouragement, recognizing that Miko's emotional and physical recovery would continue in stages. John felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that his role was crucial in bridging the gap between Miko's past and his future. The women also shared photographs of Miko's family and community, showing him familiar faces and places. The boy's eyes sparkled with recognition and joy. He reached out to touch the images, pointing to his parents, siblings, and friends. Each photograph seemed to bring him closer to his roots, reinforcing the sense of belonging that he had been missing. John watched in quiet awe, realizing that this visual connection was helping Miko heal emotionally, giving him a sense of continuity and identity. During the evening, the women helped Miko prepare a small meal with John, teaching him simple techniques and encouraging him to participate. The boy followed their instructions carefully, his focus and confidence growing with each task. John noticed that Miko was smiling more often, laughing at small mistakes, and engaging with the women in ways he had not before. It was a heartwarming sight, seeing the boy rediscover joy, curiosity, and trust. As night fell, the women prepared to leave, but not before tucking Miko in and giving him gentle hugs. They reassured him that he was safe, loved, and not alone. Miko clung to them for a moment, whispering words of gratitude and love. John stood nearby, feeling a mixture of pride, relief, and sadness. He knew that this moment marked a turning point in Miko's life, the beginning of a new chapter where he could reconnect with his family, culture, and community. After the women left, John and Miko sat together quietly, reflecting on the day. Miko leaned against John, his small hand in John's, and whispered, "I like them, they make me feel safe." John smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "I'm glad, Miko," he said softly. "They are your family, and you're going to be happy with them. You've been very brave, and now you can feel at home again." The next few days passed gently, with John supporting Miko as he gradually reconnected with the community. They exchanged letters, visited familiar places, and engaged in small traditions. Miko's confidence and strength grew daily, and John watched with pride as the boy began to thrive. The bond between them remained strong, built on trust, care, and shared experiences. John understood that while Miko's path would continue to evolve, the foundation of compassion and support he had received would guide him through life. John also learned valuable lessons from the women. He saw how culture, community, and love could provide strength and resilience. He realized that Miko's story was not just about survival, but about connection, empathy, and the human spirit's capacity to heal. The experience deepened John's understanding of compassion, making him more aware of the power of care and support in shaping lives. By the end of Part 4, Miko had transformed from a frightened, hungry child into a boy filled with hope, curiosity, and trust. The reunion with his family and community brought him a sense of belonging he had longed for, and John felt a quiet pride in having played a role in this journey. The story of these days, filled with fear, struggle, and ultimately reunion, became a testament to resilience, kindness, and the profound impact of human connection. The days after Miko was reunited with his family were filled with warmth, laughter, and quiet reflection. John remained close, visiting often and helping the boy adjust to life with his community. Miko was slowly settling back into the routines of his family and the village, rediscovering the joys of playing with friends, listening to stories from elders, and participating in simple daily chores. Each day brought new smiles, new curiosity, and new confidence. John felt a mixture of pride and bittersweet emotion, knowing that his role in the boy's life had been pivotal, but that the time was coming when Miko would no longer rely on him in the same way. Even though Miko was surrounded by love and familiarity, John continued to support him, helping him navigate both the physical and emotional aspects of returning to his community. They spent mornings together walking through the fields, exploring the forest paths, and tending to small tasks. John encouraged Miko to observe, ask questions, and take pride in his surroundings. The boy's confidence grew as he began to understand that he was capable, resilient, and loved. The bond between them remained strong, built on trust, kindness, and shared experience. John also worked closely with Miko's parents and the women who had found him. They coordinated efforts to ensure the boy's smooth reintegration into the community. They shared insights, advice, and stories about raising children in a way that balanced care, discipline, and freedom. John listened attentively, learning from their wisdom while offering his perspective from the past days he had spent with Miko. It became clear that teamwork, understanding, and patience were essential for the boy's continued growth and healing. One afternoon, as the sun cast long golden shadows across the village, John and Miko sat near a small stream that ran through the outskirts of the community. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and the gentle sound of flowing water filled the air. Miko skipped stones across the surface, laughing as they bounced and sank. John smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. He remembered the boy's first day in his care, the fear, the hunger, and the uncertainty. Now watching Miko laugh freely, he realized how far the boy had come. It was a testament to resilience, compassion, and the power of care. Miko turned to John, his small face bright with excitement. "John, look, I made it skip 3 times," he exclaimed. John nodded, clapping gently. "That's wonderful, Miko. You've got a very strong hand. Keep practicing and maybe next time you can make it skip 5 times." The boy laughed, running back to the water to try again. John watched, heart full, knowing that these moments of simple joy were building blocks of a childhood that had been nearly stolen by fear and hunger. Evenings were often spent in storytelling. John, the women, and Miko's parents would gather around small fires or in cozy corners of their home, sharing tales of courage, life lessons, and family history. Miko listened intently, sometimes interjecting with his own questions or stories. His imagination flourished as he absorbed the rich culture and wisdom of his community. John marveled at how quickly Miko had adapted, how he was finding a balance between his past experiences and his present reality. The boy's growth was not just physical but deeply emotional and intellectual, shaped by love, guidance, and connection. John also began noticing subtle changes in himself. The experience of caring for Miko, witnessing his struggles, and participating in his healing journey had transformed him profoundly. He felt more compassionate, patient, and aware of the impact one person could have on another's life. The small acts of kindness he had shown, offering food, warmth, and safety, had created ripples of trust, courage, and hope. John realized that helping Miko had not only saved a child but had also enriched his own life, giving him purpose and deep fulfillment. One morning, the community organized a small celebration in honor of Miko's return. Children played together, families shared meals, and elders spoke of resilience, courage, and the importance of caring for one another. John attended, feeling both joy and a quiet sense of closure. He saw Miko laughing, running, and interacting with his friends as though nothing had ever gone wrong. The boy's parents approached John, their eyes filled with gratitude. "We cannot thank you enough," Miko's mother said softly. "You saved him and you gave him hope when he needed it most." John smiled, feeling tears prick his eyes. "I only did what anyone would do," he replied, though he knew the truth of the statement went far deeper. Over the next few weeks, John gradually stepped back from his role as Miko's primary caregiver. He continued to visit, offering guidance and companionship, but the boy was thriving in his community, supported by family and friends. John felt proud yet wistful, knowing that their daily routines together were coming to an end. He reflected on the bond they had formed, how trust had been built, how fear had been replaced by courage, and how love had grown in the quiet moments of care and patience. One evening, as John prepared to leave after a visit, Miko ran up to him, holding a small handmade gift, a simple drawing of the two of them together near the forest, with the sun shining brightly above. "For you, John," he said softly. "Thank you for helping me." John knelt to accept the gift, feeling his heart swell. "It's beautiful, Miko, thank you. I will treasure it always." The boy smiled shyly, his small hand brushing against John's as they shared a quiet moment of understanding and affection. As John walked back to his own home, he thought about the journey of the past days. He remembered the fear in Miko's eyes when he first found him, the small victories of each meal, each step, and each smile. He remembered the arrival of the women, the emotional reunion, and the careful nurturing that had allowed the boy to grow stronger physically and emotionally. John realized that this experience had been transformative, not just for Miko, but for himself. It had reminded him of the power of compassion, patience, and human connection. In the weeks that followed, John continued to support other children in need within the town. Inspired by his experience with Miko, he volunteered at local shelters, assisted families facing hardship, and shared his story with neighbors to encourage empathy and understanding. He realized that one act of kindness could set off a chain reaction, touching lives in ways that might never be fully seen or understood. The story of Miko's survival and reunion became a quiet legend in the town, a tale of hope, courage, and the difference one person could make. Miko, meanwhile, thrived in his community. His laughter echoed through the village, his curiosity grew, and his confidence blossomed. He excelled in learning, explored the forest safely with friends, and became a symbol of resilience and courage for other children. Though he never forgot the days of fear and hunger, he carried forward the lessons of hope, trust, and love he had experienced with John. The boy's journey was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the profound impact of care and compassion. One evening, months after their first meeting, Miko ran up to John, hugging him tightly. "I'm happy, John," he whispered. "Thank you for everything." John hugged him back, feeling a deep, lasting sense of fulfillment. "I'm happy too, Miko. You've grown so much and you're strong." "I'm proud of you." They pulled back slightly, smiling at each other. There was no need for more words. Their bond spoke for itself. It was a connection formed through trust, kindness, and shared experiences that would endure for a lifetime. As the sun set over the town and the forest beyond, John reflected on the journey from the day he first found Miko in the forest to this moment of joy and connection. He thought about the fear, the struggle, the hope, and the love that had carried them both through those days. He realized that life could be unpredictable, fragile, and challenging, but it also had the power to heal, nurture, and create bonds that would last forever. Miko waved goodbye as John left the community that evening, his small hand raised with confidence and affection. John waved back, smiling, knowing that this was not a farewell, but a continuation of a story built on love, compassion, and resilience. The boy was safe, happy, and surrounded by family, and John felt grateful for the opportunity to have played a part in that transformation. And so, the story ended not with sorrow or loss, but with hope, courage, and a lasting connection. John returned to his quiet home, carrying memories of Miko's journey in his heart. He knew that the boy's life had been forever changed, and in a way, so had his own. Together, they had discovered the power of compassion, the strength of trust, and the enduring impact of human kindness. And in that knowledge, John found peace, purpose, and a quiet joy that would remain with him always.